It has been a while. Um, I got a ton of notes here, so I'm gonna be looking at my phone quite a bit. Um, Honestly, it is hard to make these videos. I don't know if it's because I'm lazy, if I'm depressed. I'm not sure where the lethargicness, whatever you call it. I don't know where that's coming from. I mean, I have an idea, but I'm not 100% sure. I know that putting on the weight, all this extra weight recently, especially in such a short time, has definitely had an impact on that, with how I feel and how I like my motivation to drive and stuff. I I've noticed more and more that I want to do less. I want to do fewer and fewer things, and that has to change. So putting on the weight has made everything so much harder because I was 515 pounds. I lost it and then I put it back on, most of it back on, and I kind of forgot how hard life is when you are this big. Getting dressed at any time is very, very difficult. It's exhausting. Like, imagine like every time you get dressed, you have to like hold a plank for however long it takes you to put on your socks, put on your shoes, and then tie them. Yeah, that's kind of what it's like. Like, I'm basically just using my core just to be able to like stretch forward and twist my body and hold myself in the proper way that I need just to be able to reach my feet to be able to tie my shoes. Putting on my belt, and like I put on my pants and putting on my belt is just difficult because just being able to trying to reach around my body. I did a measurement a long time ago back when I was at 500 pounds, and I took my belt and I stretched it all the way around, and I found the spots where the belt touched, and then I held it up next to myself, and it was literally as tall as I was. So the circumference of my waist was 6 feet, which is ridiculous. That's I don't know what the word is, but it's nuts. I don't understand. Getting in and out of my car has gotten a lot harder. I've noticed that some of the weather stripping on the side of the door where I would mostly touch whenever I get in and out is starting to wear away because I'm just putting so much pressure on it when I try to get in or when I try to get out. I'm now having to squeeze in between that and the steering wheel because I've gotten so much wider. And trying to get out of the car is a struggle because my knees, trying to support that much weight when they're bent, is like such a strain on my knees that it feels like they're going to give out at any second when I do that. And that's not good because I can really, really injure myself just trying to get out of my car. Like, how silly would that story be if they're like, hey, so what are you doing in the hospital? Why are you having to have a knee replacement? I'm like, oh, just trying to get out of my car. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm super disappointed in myself, which I guess I say in every video. Walking up and down the stairs has gotten a lot harder. I've had to get momentum recently, just trying to go up and down the stairs, and I'm sure a good portion of that is the amount of weight that I put on, but another portion of that is the fact that I have not done any physical activity in about a year and a half. So the muscles, I don't know, whatever resistance would be there that I had built up I've lost it all. So there's like no strength in my knees now. So I guess I'm getting back to doing lunges again. So I don't want to do that. I had a shoot yesterday, actually. We had the Lights Fantastic parade, and I had to park outside on a curb real quick so I could unload all my gear, all my camera gear, the lights and everything. And I parked close to the curb, and the curb is about the same height as the bottom of my door in my car. So, you know, normally when you get out, you can put your foot on the ground, and it's a little bit lower than the car. That's easier to get out. But this was 4 to 6 inches higher, so my legs were up higher, and I didn't have enough leverage to be able to get myself. My knees hurt really, really bad trying to get out of that. And I hate the way I look trying to get out of a car, like having to rock back and forth and like squeeze it through different stuff. It's just embarrassing. I know somebody's gonna be like, no, nobody's watching you. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm watching me. And it's very unflattering. It's not like, I just don't want to look like I'm struggling. That may be shallow or whatever, but I mean, you know, that's just how I feel about that. And then this one's really personal and a little hard to talk about, but I mean, even just going to the bathroom, like regular, normal, everyday bodily functions that we all have to do. Don't lie about it, because you know you do it too. It's difficult. It's very, very hard to take care of yourself when you are this big. And then the question is, why do you do this to yourself? And I want to say I don't know. I want to say I wish I had an answer, but I'm fairly certain the answer is instant gratification. If I want some pizza, I'll go get some pizza. If I want ice cream, or did you know like sweet tea has like hundreds and hundreds of calories in it? Yeah. It's all that sugar. Anyway, that's getting off the point. Yeah, it's the instant gratification. That has been the problem. There is no delayed gratification. If like, I'm like, man, I would love to have a pizza. I'd be like, how about you put in some work first before you go and get yourself a pizza? How about you earn it? And then by the time you earn it, you're like, I put in so much work, I'm not going to mess this up. That's the way I used to feel. Back when I started working out, when I first started working out with a trainer and putting in all that work 6 days a week and stuff, I'm like, man, I'm working way too hard to go freaking Hardee's and have a Monster Burger. So I would go home and eat my chicken and eat my fish. Now, I haven't put in any work, and I'm just like, it's so easy to let yourself have whatever you want, whenever you want it. Because you haven't put in any work, you don't got to worry about earning it. And I mean, that may be the wrong way to word it, because, you know, food shouldn't be a reward. Food is fuel for your body. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So, I am always, being this big, I am always tired, and I'm always in pain. There's always something on me that hurts. Thursday, I had a shoot where I produce and direct the TV show. And I was on my feet on set for 7 hours. And then we shot a music video where I had to run up and down the stairs like 10 or 12 times. Everybody else did too, but they're not as big as me. And then we were on the roof for a couple hours shooting there, and I was just on my feet for 7 hours. And then 2 days later, I had to go set up for that shoot that I had. And then I was on my feet for another like 5 hours. So this whole weekend, my body has just been in pain. My lower back's been on fire. I've been hobbling around my house just trying to get anywhere I need to go in my house. I am always sweaty. Anytime I go out to one of these shoots or whatever, I try to isolate myself as much as possible because I'm so sweaty that I'm afraid that I'm going to be like smelly, and I don't want to be around anybody in that state. So yeah, I've been isolating myself, which I think I mentioned that in one of the most recent videos, but it's a thing that constantly happens because you don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to I don't want to be that guy, which I grew up being that guy. that kid. Which kind of transitions me into my point, is my life story. So one of my best friends, you know who you are, she told me that it would be a good idea for me to get on here on one of these videos and just talk about my life growing up, my childhood, things like that, that could have more than likely helped lead to like all the stuff that I'm dealing with, like my whatever mental issues are going on, that lead me to make these decisions and that have made me the person that I am. And I thought that was a great idea. So that's what the rest of this video is going to be about, is me talking about my life. And again, these videos are for me, so that I can watch them years down the road and be like, look at that nerd. But, you know, if you get something out of this video, that is incredible, and that I really hope you do, if you do make it through this whole video, because it's just going to be me talking. So let's enjoy that. I have always been bigger. When I was younger, we would always go out to eat, sometimes 4 or 5 times a week. And it was mostly buffets. We would go to this Chinese place, and they knew us by name. We went there so much. They knew that there was a dish that they had on the lunch buffet that they did not have on the dinner buffet, but they would save it from lunch until dinner because they knew that whenever we came in, we would always ask for it. I was probably 9, 10, 11, something like that. So yeah, we would always ask for that, and then they would save it in the back, and then I guess if we didn't show up that day, they would just throw it away, I guess, like they would if it came from lunch, but they would save it. That's how well they knew us. It was basically just buffets and stuff like that, and here's why. So my mom, my biological mother, she ended up having epilepsy, and we found out later that she had an aneurysm in her brain. And I don't know if this was the cause, but this is what I believe, is that contributed to her having a seizure and going into a coma. She was in a coma for 4 years, I think, 4 or 5 years. The day that she went into a coma, my dad basically became a single father. So he was a single father overnight. And up until then, he had this partner who knew how to raise kids, knew how to cook, knew how to clean, knew how to take care of everything. My dad, he had no idea how to do any of this stuff. He had no idea how to cook. He had no idea how to clean, do laundry, let alone raise 2 unruly boys, my brother and me, my biological brother and me. So that sounds like a good story title, My Biological Brother and Me. And in order to do that, he had to get a bunch of jobs because he needed to earn all the money. And I mean, it's possible that he could have, dove into work, because losing your partner, the person who like you've relied on to like take care of everything around the house, kind of throws a wrench into things. So while my dad was at work all day, my brother and I would be home, especially during the summer. And I don't know if he got these jobs because, whenever you're stressed and you lose your partner who has been taking care of everything, some people, they dive into work to like deal with it. So maybe that's what he did. But while he was at work, my brother and I would be home alone all day, and we basically just ran around the neighborhood. We took our bikes and we would go riding around with our friends literally all day. We would go to places that we shouldn't have been going, like we would go to the train tracks and down into the bayou, and we would ride down the main street this was in Houston, Texas. We would ride down some of the main streets that had a big hill on it, and we would ride down that and then jump over this thing. We got hurt all the time. We used to ride our bikes on the roof of our house, chase each other in the backyard with knives, like kitchen knives and stuff. It's like, you know, stuff you do when you don't have any supervision. Anyway, so since my dad was at work basically all day and all night, we didn't have a bedtime. We didn't, you know how like you see in the movies or whatever, this is the only place I've ever seen it, where the parents will come in and they're like, okay, time to go to bed, go brush your teeth, get ready for bed, blah, blah, blah. We didn't have that. So there was no routine to go to bed. There was no like, I wasn't raised with the standard routine of brush your teeth, take a shower, go to bed, make your bed, clean your laundry. Like we didn't have any of that stuff. So I grew up for the first 14, 15 years of my life, none of that. So I had no concept of hygiene when I was a little kid. So that led into me getting picked on literally every single day at school. I cannot remember a single day when I wasn't picked on or bullied. There was a time I remember I was the last one picked up on the school bus, and I would get on and I would go sit in the back, and I'd lay my head against the window and typically go to sleep because I would be up all night because I didn't have a bedtime. So I would be exhausted when I get on the bus. And one day, these two kids in front of me, they popped up over the back of the seat and they held up these cologne bottles. And I ended up falling asleep. And when I woke up, I just reeked of cologne because they had poured it all over me. I would get, I'd be getting ready to get off the bus, and I could sense something was weird, and all the kids were like whispering and stuff, and I got up to get off because I was the first kid dropped off. If you're the last one picked up, you're the first one dropped off, and I'd be walking from the back all the way up to the front, and I got about halfway down the aisle, and literally every single person had gotten notebook paper, crumpled it up, and they all threw it at me. Right when I got to the middle of the bus, everybody started laughing, so then I get off the bus and I go home. What does that do to a kid? Like, it kind of messes you up. You feel a little worthless, like kind of singled out, like you are the butt of the joke. It messes with you quite a bit. They had a game at school where they would push each other into me because nobody wanted to touch me. So I'd be walking down the hallway, and then all of a sudden I'd get bumped, and it's because somebody shoved somebody else into me, because it was a game to like try to stay away from me and not touch me. So yeah, man, just talking about this stuff like all at once really like I don't know if I've ever actually processed it before. So my dad, since he had so many jobs, he would go to work early in the morning before I would get up to go to school. The alarm would go off, and most of the time I would get up, get dressed, go down to the bus stop, catch the bus, and go to school. There were there were a lot of times where I would just kind of shut down and be like, I'm not going to school today. And I didn't have anybody there to make me go because my mom was in the hospital and my dad was at work. So my alarm would go off and I would shut it off. And then my dad, since I did this so many times, my dad he started calling the house after the time that I was supposed to be gone for school. So if I answered the phone, he would know that I'm home. So I started turning off the ringer on the phone. This was back on when we had landlines. Cell phones weren't a thing. This was 95, 96 maybe. So I'd turn off the ringer so I didn't have to hear the phone ring. Because when the phone would ring, I would get this anxious feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in trouble. I shouldn't be doing this. So I would shut the ringer off so I could sleep, wouldn't feel bad. So then I'd wake up, I'd call my dad and be like, Dad, I missed the bus again. And he would lose his mind. He's like, do I need to quit my job and stay home to make sure you guys go to school? Rightfully so. But yeah, so I ended up failing the 7th grade because I missed 29 days of school in 1 year. So I had to redo the 7th grade. Luckily, there was a whole thing where the next year I did half a year of 7th grade. And if I did well enough, they promoted me to 8th grade halfway through the year. So I only did like half a year of 8th grade. But anyway, yeah, so I missed enough days to actually fail the 7th grade. But even through all of that, with all the stuff that we had going on, I am so incredibly proud of my dad. During this time, from the time when my mom went into the hospital to the time that we moved to where we live now, he worked like 5 jobs. He was a pastor. He had his own church. My brother and I were unruly, basically, so we would like lay down in church and kind of be disruptive. And he did his best to control us from the pulpit, and that was kind of hard to do because you're up in front of the whole church. He was a security guard for the newspaper, so he worked in I don't know how many, 10, 12, 15-story building, so he'd walk around that all the time and security guard the place. He was a bounty hunter. And what's crazy is a lot of people are like, oh, bounty hunter, you go and kick doors in, you hunt people down. And no, you basically just do a lot of research. You have to go, and back then there wasn't the internet really. So you had to go and like pay I think it's 10 cents a copy to like copy the records from the courthouse. And a lot of stakeouts where you would just sit in a car outside somebody's house and watch them, or, whatever went into all that stuff. But he was a bounty hunter as well. And if you provided information that led to the capture of whoever was on the bounty or whatever, however that works, you would get a check. Like they would give you money. I guess it depends on, how much they were offering for that person. But there were times when my dad would come home and he's like, hey, I got a check from this. So, and he would take us out. Like we would go to the arcade. So even though he had these 5 jobs, he still found time to take my brother and me to the park. We would go play baseball, just the 3 of us, just hanging out. We played Frisbee sometimes, and he took us to the arcade. It was a massive castle that had go-karts, and we would just go around and just play video games together, just hang out and have a good time. Because he had, he was able to have all this extra money. But when he didn't, we would go, like I said, we would go to the park, and he just found time to spend with us. While he was working all these jobs, spending time with us, trying to raise us, another thing that he had to do was constantly decide what to do with my mom. Because I think the way it worked was, if she was stable enough, they would move her to a nursing home. And then if she started to deteriorate, they'd move her to a hospital, and then back to a nursing home, back to a hospital. And I think the way that the insurance worked or something, it would only pay for a certain amount of time in one type of facility or something. So he constantly had to be making decisions about where to move her. And I didn't know any of this when I was a kid. I found out about this recently, that he had to deal with all that stuff. So after 4 years of my mom being in the hospital and my dad deciding where to put her and all the stuff that needed to be taken care of with that, she passed away. And what's kind of crazy is I don't really remember much between the time she died and the time that we moved here. Your parents protect you from quite a lot. And that you learn about later in life. But yeah, so he was dealing with all of that stuff. And whenever we would go out to the park, or just be hanging out outside, he taught me, at least me, he taught me how to fight. He taught me how to defend myself. Not like any extensive training where, we're out in the yard, like being like the Karate Kid with all the movements and stuff. But I mean, he taught me like basic self-defense and like, how to take care of myself in any aggressive situation if I needed to. But with all of that, the most important thing that I learned from my dad is how to care for others. If you think about all the jobs he had, they are protector, defender, caring professions, security guard, making sure your coworkers are safe, bounty hunter, getting bad people off the streets, pastor, caring for people's souls and their well-being. He had other jobs that I don't even really know about because I was 14 at the time, just trying to be a kid, whatever. And I feel like caring for others is my calling. I feel like that is what I'm supposed to do with my life. I feel like I'm an encourager. My whole purpose is to help people realize the best versions of themselves. Now, how can I do that if I'm not being the best version of myself? If I'm not taking care of myself? If I'm not pushing myself to constantly be better? I can't do that. So I'm failing in my purpose. Just because I want that instant gratification. I want that dopamine or whatever those other chemicals are in your brain that make you feel happy or satisfied or satiated, whatever. All because I'm being greedy and selfish, wanting to feel good, get the feel-good hormones and the dopamine all in myself. I am not helping anybody else. I lay around the house all day. I don't ever go out. I don't want to go out and do anything. I don't want to spend time with people. I've noticed I am way more irritable now. And I'm sure that has to do with, like, imagine if you were just exhausted all the time and then somebody was like, hey, here's a problem. Usually your first reaction would be to just get irritated and be like, why is this happening? I've noticed myself doing that a lot. And I know it has to do with not only the weight gain and the just being tired and exhausted and in pain all the time, but also I know my hormones are messed up. Because I've just been eating like fat and carbs and like junk, processed foods and things like that I shouldn't be eating. Whereas I should be eating whole foods. And I understand that all of that plays a role in your brain chemistry and the way your body reacts to things. And I have been making the conscious decision to not take care of myself. And that has basically stunted any growth or progress that I have in my life. I don't want to do things. Like, I don't want to do my hobbies. I don't want to spend time with people. I don't want to, and how can I be an encourager if I'm not going to spend time with people? That doesn't work. Anyway, yeah, so I haven't been caring for myself, and that has caused me to put on all this weight. And I'm back to wearing the even bigger clothes than in my last videos. This shirt is one that I wore back when I was at my biggest. And I've had to resort back to it because even if my other shirts, they fit me around, they're not long enough. So like, this is so embarrassing to talk about, but I feel like it's necessary because I'm sure people out there can relate and you've dealt with it before, and I want you to know you're not alone. The bottom part of my belly will hang out sometimes. It's because the shirt's not, well, I want to say the shirt's not long enough, but that's not the problem. The problem is I'm too big. So, yeah, so I got on the scale the other day. I remember talking about this in one of the other videos. It was like, I haven't wanted to do the little orange gems from one jar to the other because I know I've put on weight. I got on the scale the other day and it said error. And that's not a joke. Like, it literally said error. So I genuinely don't know how much I weigh right now. And that's concerning. Yeah, I kind of feel, this is getting a little off tangent, but I feel a little hypocritical making these videos, because I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna change the way I'm doing things, and I'm gonna start losing weight, and I'm gonna start eating right. And I haven't. This is like, what, the 4th or 5th video, and I still haven't changed anything. That means it's been a month and a half to 2 months of me sitting here talking to the camera and then not making any changes. My old trainer's words come into mind whenever I get into, like, when I get to this point. It's like, apparently it doesn't bother you enough to change it. So I say, oh, it bothers me, it makes me sad, it makes me upset, but apparently it doesn't bother me enough because I haven't changed what I've been doing to make it better. All right, so back to my life story. Let's see, we just got done with talking about my dad becoming a single father. So in about 95 or 96, my dad met a woman on a Christian email group. And this was back when the internet was just a little baby. And we had what was called web TV. And it was a little box, kind of like an old cable box, but it would plug in, and it would plug into your TV, and you would have the internet. And there wasn't a mouse, so you had to do everything with the arrows and select stuff on the screen. But anyway, he met her there, and then they started talking individually off the group, and they talked for a year, and then he asked her to marry him before they had even met. So he asked her to marry him, and then we came up here. We moved 800 miles to start a new life, and I all of a sudden had 4 new stepbrothers and a stepmom, which in our family we have dropped the step, and we don't really refer to that. So it's my mom and my brothers. It's so weird to say, even just to say step, but sometimes I feel like it's necessary to make it clear. I can't be like, oh, my mom died, and then, yeah, so my mom, now this, blah, blah, blah. I've done that before on my podcast where everybody was like, wait a minute, you just said your mom died. So I have to specify the step at first, and then we can drop it later. So when we moved up here with them, it was around the time that I was starting high school. And again, going into this new school, I was the new kid, but I was also the new, fat, smelly kid. So back to being picked on every single day. There was one day I was walking to my shop class, and one kid walked up to me and he stopped me, and he just looked at me and he's like, God, you're fat, and then walked away. I don't know what the purpose of that was, but it sticks with you. Like, that's something that kind of gets ingrained in your brain. I'm the type of person who, I don't have it in me to say that or to do that to somebody. And that type of interaction doesn't even compute to me. Like, I would never consider doing that. So if somebody says something like that to me, I don't even know how to react, because it's not even on my radar of a way to interact with a person. So I kind of just, I realized whenever stuff like that happens, I just shut down because I literally have no response. I don't know how to react to that. That doesn't make sense to me. So there was that. There was another kid who would constantly bully me. It got to a point where one day he was like smacking me in the face. Again, this is the same kind of situation. I would never, ever consider doing that to somebody, so I had no idea how to react. Doing that to somebody didn't even seem like a thing that was possible in my realm of whatever you want to call it, in my universe. So I had no idea how to react, how to respond. So I kind of just like went blank. I was like, what is happening? I didn't understand. So I didn't fight back. I didn't like go tell on him or anything. I just didn't know what was happening. The same kid, this is how, I guess, empathetic or naive, whatever you want to call it, I am. I was walking outside the school one day, and I guess school was over and we were leaving, and he walked up to me and he was like walking very slowly, and he was like, hey, my shoe's untied, my back hurts so bad I can't tie my shoe, can you tie it for me? And it took everything in me to be the bigger person and be like, yeah, I got you. So I knelt down and I tied his shoe, and then I stood up, and then he proceeded to bend over, touch his toes, do the little twisty, like, yep, everything's fine, oh, I'm good, and then walked away. I don't understand. I don't understand how you can act that way to a person. I don't get it. I guess, everybody could be like, oh, he's just being a kid. Like, I mean, yeah, I get that. You're still trying to learn your place in the world, but it still, either way, it doesn't, I don't understand it. Even back then, I couldn't fathom that kind of acting that way to a person. In my freshman year, I joined the football team. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I was in the locker room one day, and I can't really say specifically what one of these kids did to me. It wasn't anything like really bad, but it's so embarrassing to say that I don't want to actually say specifically what it was. But let's just say that I was body shamed heavily. And he did it in front of everybody. And then when I was upset about it, he was mocking me, and he said to everybody else, all my other teammates, look at him, he's upset. He doesn't like it. Obviously, yeah. But so I left and I went home, and I was very sad, very down. And I told my parents about it, and I cried. Again, I couldn't understand how you can do that to a person. Like, how do you treat somebody that way? I don't understand it. My whole time in high school wasn't all bad. I did make some really, really good friends. One of my friends, Cyrus, he had so many friends. And this is the way I perceived him. If you ask him the story, he's like, I didn't have that many friends. I perceived him as having a bunch of friends. Everybody loved him. He was silly. He was playful. He was a bigger dude, but everybody loved him. But he was silly. He was funny. He was like, I really, really admired him. So I started hanging out with him, and I started kind of taking on some of his traits of like being playful and being silly. And I was like, I think this is who I really am. Because like going through school, I was always quiet and shy. Because, I mean, I was always picked on. I was always shut down and belittled. But then I met him, and he was outgoing, playful, and funny. And I started acting like that, and then I was like, this is what I enjoy doing. I love being the silly, playful person. And that kind of got me to the point that I am now, where everybody who knows me is like, yo, he's extroverted. He's so playful. He's silly. I'm always trying to make people laugh and make people feel better about themselves. And I attribute a lot of that to him. But he's one of the friends that I made in high school and that I'm still incredibly good friends with today. He was my workout partner for a while. We started a vlog a long time ago.
Serious face. Working out's a booger. We're out, that's it.
I shot probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 vlogs with him, and I only edited one of them. But that goes back to the whole, that's my job, and I don't want to do it in my free time, which is a part of the reason why it's so hard for me to make these videos, because I literally do it all day, every day, and it's like to be able to have to do it on the weekend too, it's a lot. But that's beside the point. Anyway, yeah, so I'm still really great friends with him. I got a couple other friends that I'm just like really, really close with that I met in high school. So high school wasn't all bad, but a good portion of it was. So I don't know the psychology of like what causes people to develop their habits and their routines and their insecurities and all that kind of stuff. I know it has a lot to do with your childhood, how you were raised, how you were, your experiences as a kid and stuff like that. And I've had several people tell me like, that happened when you were a kid, you need to grow out of it by now, or, you know, whatever. And I don't agree with that. Like, yes, there are definitely some things you need to overcome, but like some things it's not that easy. It's not that easy to be like, oh yeah, I'm fine now. I don't have an insecurity, about how I look and, how I feel when I'm around other people. It's not that easy to just be like, yeah, we're good. You know, because it sticks with you and you constantly have that fear of like, how am I perceived by these other people? And that plays a lot into your confidence, which I've come to find out really has a huge bearing on your life. So I have to get myself out of these behaviors and these routines that I've developed over the years, tried to overcome during the 3 years that I was going to personal training and stuff like that. And then obviously I didn't address the issues because as soon as I stopped doing that, I went right back to exactly what I was doing before, which anybody who has worked in the industry of behavioral science or, you know, whatever it is will tell you that's exactly what you're going to do. So I'm going to have to figure out how to get myself back into that because it can't be just do it. It's literally not that easy. It's easier said than done. Yes, you can just do it, which I did for 3 years. I just did it. And then as soon as I didn't have the accountability anymore, as soon as I stopped paying my personal trainer to yell at me for not showing up or not doing what I needed to do, I fell right back into those things. So to wrap up this probably 36-hour long video, I have to make the decision to change. Back when I very first started, right before I started losing weight and getting into the whole weight loss thing, I felt there was a switch that just flipped where I was like, that's it, I'm doing it. And I flipped the switch. That switch, the momentum to flip that switch, the catalyst was Matt and Melissa from Stacked giving me a bunch of free meals and being like, better your life, that's all we want from you. And then I had to do it because if I didn't, I would have let them down. Somebody who was giving of their free time and their free giving of themselves. And in this case, it was their business. They'd had a meal prep business and they were giving me $1,000 a month worth of food for free, just so that I could better myself. And again, like I said before in a couple of videos ago, maybe last video, I don't know. It's incredibly disrespectful to not do, when you've accepted it, to not do what they've asked you to do whenever they're providing you with this $1,000 a month worth of free food. But that's what got me to make that change. So I need to, now that I'm done with all of that, I'm past all of that, and I don't have anybody being like, hey, here's this to better yourself. I have to do it myself. So I have to flip that switch and get back into that mode. And I want, this is going to be on, it's going to live on the internet forever. I want to say that the last couple days where I had that 7-hour shoot where we were producing the TV show, and then that production for we had a parade recently. I want to say that those two things, like trying to deal with those with the way that my body, I had to force myself. It was so hard to just walk around and stand up and get up out of the car, and just hours and hours and hours of setup and shooting video. And like the way my body felt this whole weekend, everything was on fire. My hips, my ankles, my knees, my back. I would lay down and then I would be like, oh, I forgot the TV remote or my water or whatever. And I would get angry because I had to get back up. That it should not be that way. So I just need to, I'm going to implement these, I'm going to make these changes. I'm going to implement the changes and I'm going to stick with them. And I've mentioned those changes in the past, so I don't need to do it again in this video, but that's it for this video. Basically, if you guys are going to follow along and see all the stuff that I've got going on, as my friend made a really good point, that I needed to share the about me video essentially, so you can have like some kind of context as to what I'm talking about and why I'm making the decisions I'm making. So leave a comment wherever the comment section is, and like tell me about your childhood. I want to hear about like the stuff that you had to go through, the stuff you're still dealing with in your life, and how you plan to overcome it. You know, let's have a conversation and build a culture of support and accountability for each other. So, yeah, that's it. You guys are so loved, and I will see you later.